Hello everybody and welcome to another morning of Good Morning Sri Lanka right here on MTV Sports. And as usual, we've got some exciting topics, and this morning in particular it's an interesting topics for all you parents out there, especially if you have little kids in school, especially little kids like the ones who are going for grade 5 scholarship exams or O-levels, A-levels, etc. And as usual, we've got the experts here in the studio, and the guest we have this morning is actually a familiar face to Good Morning Sri Lanka, because we've done quite a number of shows with this guest. We've spoken about various topics with him, including stress management, and he is a consultant psychiatrist for the National Hospital of Sri Lanka, and he's also a senior lecturer at the University of Colombo. Good morning, Dr. Mahesh Rajasurya, and thank you for being with us on the show again.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. And like I was saying, it's an interesting topic for all the parents out there, because this is something that covers about child education in general, but we especially want to stress on the examination factor of a child's education, and then maybe later on we'll get into a few general topics on education in general. So Doctor, if I'm to start with the main and most important question of this morning, especially when it comes to exams, how important are exams for kids?
Exams are very important. At least people believe that exams are very important. Let's look at what exams really are.
Okay.
The exams are basically assessments. After a particular stint of learning, teaching activities. So if you take Year 5 scholarship exams, you have it was supposed to assess what the kid has done in the grade 5 first 2 terms, but now the teaching targets the child from the age of perhaps even before starting school.
Yeah,
so.
Doctor, I mean, like I've actually come across more guests when we're talking about preschool education and stuff, and apparently there are parents who put their children for preschools like even from the age of like 2.
And for extra classes.
Do you think that's too much?
Of course.
Okay.
And harmful too.
Oh, really?
All right. We'll come back to that later. So the exam is supposed to assess what the child or even an adult has learned during a particular course. So if the exam does that, we say the exam is properly aligned. This word alignment is a term that is used by educationists. Alignment means that the teaching, learning activities of a particular course do get assessed at the end at the assessment. Now, a good example is a driving test.
Okay.
So to pass a driving test and to obtain your license, you need to first actually learn how to drive.
Correct.
There may be other ways, but ideally you have to first learn how to drive, and then you have to show that you can drive. So the examiner tests whether you can actually drive.
Indeed.
Safely and efficiently.
And they also actually test you on the road rules and stuff, right?
Yes, of course.
There's an exam you need to
peripheral
sit in, right?
other matters, of course. So basically, what is needed is that you need to be able to drive safely and efficiently on the road, and that is tested. And if you can drive safely and efficiently, you pass. If you can't, you don't. So that is an example where the examination is properly aligned with the learning.
So what you're saying is there's a practical element in it as well as a theoretical element in it.
If it is a practical skill that is being taught, then the exam has to be a practical exam, like driving. But if it is say you want to teach the Bible or some other verse or whatever song to a child, the words, then it will be just a recall of those words or whatever that has been memorized. So it may not be a practical test, it may be just a written test. So that is what is meant by the word alignment. But when the exams are properly aligned, exams are very effective, and they serve the purpose they are supposed to serve, just like in the driving test. So people who pass it are generally people who can actually drive. So if it is a good driving test, and the person has obtained the license, you can be fairly assured that this is a person who can drive. But now if you look at some other courses, some other educational situations, for an example, the Year 5 scholarship exam, does it test what it is supposed to test? Now, what do we want from the Year 5 scholarship exam? There are many objectives. One is to select or weed or kind of filter out and select the students who are sort of gifted, whom would benefit from more facilities and a school with more facilities. And then to give them that opportunity. But now what has happened is, if you look at the exam, it's basically a paper-based, paper-pencil exam.
Yeah.
So what is basically happening is that children are taught to pass the exam.
Correct.
Now, for an example, one area that is asked from students is about road signs. Since we are on the just talked about driving.
The question about road signs which are being asked is also in the Year 5 scholarship exam.
They are asked about general things in life. For an example, if they know the meanings of road signs. So what happens is that the question would be, they are given road signs and they are supposed to write what each one means, or one particular road sign means.
Okay.
Now, what really happens in teaching is, what should really happen is that children should first learn that a thing like driving on a road is a public exercise, a thing that we all do. So it's not easy because there are so many roads and pedestrians so many vehicles and pedestrians on the road. So we need some sort of a discipline, a set of rules to guide all of us. So then we can have peace of mind and safety on the road.
I see.
For that we need many things. One thing is road signs, which tells us, this road is going to be narrow beyond this point. People are going to cross the road just ahead. You need to slow down, or you need to keep to a particular speed limit. There is an intersection ahead and all that. Unless we have such a system, it will be utter chaos on the road. Unless we are driving alone in a countryside where nobody else is to be seen. So that the child has to have that concept in their mind and has to learn the importance of the road signs, and then practically to be able to spot road signs on the road and derive the meaning of these road signs.
I see. So are you saying that right now when they've been asked the question, they don't really know, or they're not taught exactly what the road sign is supposed to do or supposed to convey, the message the road sign is trying to convey?
If you look at how the teaching is happening, you would have the answer. So what do the teachers do? I'm not saying that all the teachers are like this and this what happens at every school and every teaching occasion. But generally what happens is that they are given a note. Road signs are signs that help us to drive safely. So they are supposed to memorize that, right? It's just a sentence in their mind. So the ones who can recall it will recall and write it down if asked. And then they are given the road signs. This means that, and that means this, right?
Okay.
So if there is a...
So this means no parking, for example.
No parking.
Okay.
But sometimes if you ask what does no parking mean, the child might not be able to answer that.
I see.
Right. So the way
so
the
it's very theoretical.
It's just parroting.
Okay.
If you look at the way they memorize, some kids use things like this. If there is a man in the picture, that means a crossing. If there are two people, that means a school, right? But why should we have a road sign to indicate that there's a school ahead? The kid has no idea.
No idea. I see.
Right? So they're just memorizing colors and the pictures, and if there is a car and two lines, that means slippery when wet.
Wow, okay.
right? Why the two lines, why the car is there, and why we should have such a road sign on the road. I mean, that's not taught, that's not learnt, and that's not assessed.
I see.
At the exam, what is assessed is that if that picture is given, can the child go back, go to his, the memory store,
I see.
and pick up the matching sentence,
I see.
and just write it.
Oh, well, Doctor, on that note, we need to go in for a short commercial break, but don't go away. Taking Doctor's point, I'm going to ask him in the next segment what his opinion is on actually how they should assess these kids. So stay tuned for that. We'll be right back after this. Welcome back to Good Morning Sri Lanka for the second segment of this morning's show. The topic to this morning is all about examinations and education for your child. And in the studio, just to introduce our guest once again, we have Dr. Mahesh Rajasurya, who is a consultant psychiatrist for the National Hospital of Sri Lanka and is also senior lecturer at the University of Colombo. And we were basically discussing based on doctor's opinion. He was saying in the previous segment that taking, for example, the Year 5 scholarship exam, he was saying that sometimes assessing the kid in the exam may not be done exactly how it may be. Maybe it's not the best way that it's done. And we were taking the example of using road signs. So I'm going to ask Doctor now. Doctor, in your opinion, how do you think it should be done?
Well, that's a tough question. To design proper exams, properly aligned exams, that means exams that actually test what they should, is a hugely difficult task. But if you again look at that driving test, it's a reasonably properly aligned exam.
Okay.
So if you really want to teach a kid how the importance of road signs and how to read them, how to use them properly, well, you basically have to take the child to the road, right? How frequently do we see teachers taking children to the road on foot or in a vehicle?
Doctor, I'm just going to stop you there. I'm going to just throw something at you here. Now, if we're taking the Year 5 scholarship exam, for example, we're talking about kids, if I'm not mistaken, about 10 or 11 years.
Yeah.
I mean, they're considerably at a young age. So do you think even at that young age, it's still okay to or could it be too much for them?
It's too much for them if you give them a list of facts and ask them to memorize.
Okay.
It's useless and it can be even harmful. So what we are teaching them is basically two skills, registering and recalling, which are very, very primary, elementary skills, which are hardly of any use nowadays. You have instant access to internet.
Yeah.
You have calculators, so hardly anything that you need to memorize. It's redundant giving such skills to kids. But if you look at, say, for an example, if you stick to the same example, road signs, it's not that an 8-year-old or 9-year-old or 10-year-old kid is going to drive on the road, but obviously they are going to walk on the road. And but what we need to teach them, what we need to do is to create the basis in their minds on which we later build driving skills, how to use the road properly on their own and all that. So that doesn't come to you at the midnight hour of your 18th birthday. It has been built. It has to be built gradually over a period of years. So basically, what you are putting inside their minds is, there is perhaps just the concept that there is a thing called road signs, and you need a discipline to use the road properly. But unfortunately, that's not what's happening. And if you do that, the test would be, I can just kind of only speculate. It will be a practical test where a bunch of kids are taken on a walk by a teacher, and they some kids may be able to spot the road signs, other children, just oblivious. So that's how you test their skills.
How is it in the international arena? Do they practice this there?
In international scene, there are no exams, at least until they are beyond grade 5.
Oh, really?
Right? Because they know that exams are useless at that stage, right? Because the things that the kids are supposed to learn at those ages can hardly be tested properly, right? For an example, in Finland, children start schooling at the age of 7, and they have no exams for the first several years. And homework, if there is homework, maximum it takes half an hour a day. So, because in developed countries, they have recognized how harmful exams can be. But unfortunately, the system we have here is such that most exams do not test. There are exams when we do not need exams, and the exams assess what is not really important in the development of the child for their future. So then, so that is actually the situation. Sad, but that is the situation. If you even take something like the O-level examination, again, mostly it's memorizing and recalling. In the A-levels as well, right? You learn about the structure of the atom and everything, but it's just when it is tested, it's just memorizing and recalling.
Actually, now since we went on to older kids, so O-levels and A-levels, one thing I wanted to ask you was, since of late, actually from a few years ago, we've been seeing syllabuses changing, especially when it comes to UK exams or all these little universities that come here and set up in Sri Lanka and stuff. Not so much maybe seen in the local education system, where slowly we see the written examinations being taken out and assignment-based activity coming in, where it's more like handing over projects with a deadline given rather than actually going to an exam hall and writing something. What is your opinion on that?
Because it's so difficult to align exams properly with what is being taught. So that is a way out, right? So instead of having grand end of the term, end of the year, end of the school career exams, we have several assignments, projects and things that the kids have to do and prove that they have gained a particular skill, show evidence that they have gained a particular skill. Yes, definitely that is much better than the standard exams that we have.
I see. And actually, like when I've spoken to some people, I mean, I'm a person who has been through the system myself. Like, for example, I'm just after a postgraduate marketing qualification, and when I started the syllabus, we had written exams, but gradually it started shifting to assessments. But everybody thinks that, okay, when you go in to write an exam, because you have to memorize it at that moment, you just have it's luck, or you just have to write it out, that it's really difficult because there's so much of studying to do. But in reality, in my experience, I've come across the fact that doing assignments are actually harder than sitting for written exams.
Of course it is, because it actually tests what it is supposed to test.
And I also think the marking is of a higher standard, isn't it?
Yes, the marking is even tougher. The examiner has to be... Now in these other, the typical poorly aligned exams, the examiners are not really skillful. They don't have to really have the skill that is being tested. All they have to have is a marking scheme.
Yeah.
Right. Anybody who can read can mark the answer. But in the assignments that you mentioned, the examiner has to be a person who is really thorough with what is being taught and what is being learnt by the student. So marking is even more difficult than doing the assignment.
All right. Well, on that note, Doctor, we need to go in for a break. But before that, I'm going to leave you with the tunes of Yanni, and then we're going to go for a commercial break, and we'll be right back to discuss a little bit about education in general when it comes to kids. So stay tuned. Welcome back to Good Morning Sri Lanka. I sure hope you enjoyed the tunes of Yanni. Well, I don't know about you, but if you ask me, his students really never get old. This is some beautiful pieces from Annie to listen to. Anyway, this morning's show is all about education and examinations for your kids, and I've been asking our guest if he thinks the way children are assessed today here in Sri Lanka, whether it actually makes sense, and Dr. Mahesh Rajasurya, our guest, thinks not. So I'm going to ask him what he thinks the solution for this problem is.
When exams are not properly aligned, when we realize that a particular exam is not properly aligned, well, the solution is pretty obvious. We need to change the exam. We need to change the system. We need to change the way the exam is designed, is held, and how kids are assessed. For that, I mean, it's a deep, complex education topic. Educationists should sit and discuss this, and they are doing it, and it's not easy. So each year we are trying to do it better. So that is obviously the solution that comes to the mind of any person when we realize that the exams are not properly testing what they actually should. Well, now, but we have these exams going on now. In another few months' time, the kids would be sitting for the Year 5 scholarship exam. At the end of just before, after that, older kids would be sitting for the A-levels, and at the end of the year, they would be sitting for the O-levels, and there are so many other exams in universities. The alignment is not very good even in universities.
Okay. I mean, Doctor, you should know because you are a lecturer at the university as well.
I'm a lecturer at the Faculty of Medicine. The alignment is, not to protect my field, but the alignment is not too bad in the field of medicine, because there is an actual test which is going to happen soon once a doctor qualifies, which is working.
Okay.
The doctor has to, next day after he qualifies, he has to go to the work. Huh? So we know that we have to produce doctors who can actually work.
Yeah.
So we have been forced to align our exams, in a better way.
And here in Sri Lanka, we do have reasonably good doctors, right?
Yes, the Sri Lankan doctors can work anywhere in the world, and so it's fairly, at least not too bad in the field of medicine. So if the exams are not properly aligned, we need to align them. Yes. Okay, now, but we have mal-aligned exams going on each year, and our kids have to sit for these exams. So what can you do? Well, one thing we can do is to decide whether my kid actually really needs to sit for this exam. For an example, the Year 5 scholarship exam. Now, I have seen kids who are in, the most popular schools sitting for the Year 5 scholarship exams. For what? I mean, they are not going to leave the school. They are not going to get another school. So why they are sitting?
If I may share a personal experience of mine, Doctor, on that, the school I went to, I very much remember because I was somebody who failed the Year 5 scholarship exam, right? But in our school, we had like about 6 classes in a section. So there would be one dedicated class for that section to put all the kids who qualified from the scholarship exam.
This differential teaching and segregating children is 180 degrees turnaround of education principles.
Okay.
Right? This is really harmful.
Right?
Because that does not exist in the world, segregating people according to their IQ or whatever. And it is really, teaching children discrimination, and, obviously the other classes are going to be labeled and all that.
Because you all say, that's a smart class. So
obviously the others are maybe stupid or whatever, they get another label. So it's really damaging. It's really damaging.
Anyway, sorry, Doctor, I was disrupting your thought process.
So do you really need to sit for a particular exam? If you really have to sit for the exam, then you have to. But if you do not have to sit for that exam, then do not sit for that exam. Do not send your kid for that exam. It's an unnecessary burden, which is harmful to your kid, and it is testing something which is totally unrelated to real life, the reality of living. Right? Just memorizing certain things which you are going to forget a day after the exam. So not sit for the exam. That is one solution, if you can do that. Then other one, if you have to sit for the exam, say for an example, the O-level examination. Well, if you plan to do the A-levels, you have to sit for the O-level
examination.
Or if you plan to obtain a particular qualification to do another course, then you have to sit for the O-level examination. So be very specific, explicitly clear what your objective is. If you are going to, you want to do A-levels, which stream? Say you want to do maths. So then you have to, you know the minimum grades you have to get from the O-levels. So not to aim for the minimum grade, but that's your aim, right? But if you are going to do another stream, the aim may be different. If you're going to do another course after this exam, and you need a pass for science and a credit for maths, I mean, there's no point in trying hard to get 9 A's. But that's what kids do. Even to do bioscience or maths, you don't need 9 A's. You need an A.
But it's actually the pressure that especially the parents give. You know, you have to get A's.
Why?
Well,
because
many reasons actually, which parents do that. I mean, one is to, I'm just saying some parents like to show that their kids are bright.
Exactly. So it has become a sign of maybe being bright, or maybe, you know, it has become actually a symbol of pride, which you boast. You tell others, you know, my kid has got 9 A's. How about your one? Right. And if your one has not got 9 A's, you are looking for a crack to, you know, disappear through the floor.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, Doctor. We need to go in for a short commercial break. When we come right back, we'll just continue from here. So don't go away. We want to continue from here. We'll be right back after this quick break. And you are watching Good Morning Sri Lanka once again on MTV Sports for the final segment of this morning's show. It's all about child education here on the show, and we've got the expert in the studio. We've got a consultant psychiatrist from the National Hospital of Sri Lanka, Dr. Mahesh Rajasuriya, who has been good enough to come back to the show several counts of times just to talk to us about various topics like this. So, Doctor, in the previous segment, we were actually talking about the solutions to the faults, in your opinion, of the education system. And we've been continuously talking about the grade 5 scholarship exam. And then later we basically moved on to the O-level exam, and you basically said that, you know, you don't need all the grades. As your parents also keep stressing to the kids, you don't really need all the grades. You don't need 9 A's if you want to, you know, do A-levels. You need to figure out which stream you're in. So we stopped there, Doctor, if you'd like to continue from there.
Yeah, actually you don't need 9 A's for anything.
Actually, yeah.
Whatever you want to do, you don't need 9 A's. Not that it's a bad thing to get 9 A's, but you don't have to put undue pressure on yourself and your kid because of that. If you take the example of the A-levels, say your objective may be to get 3 passes and get a job, or do another course, or you want to get into the best 10% in the country and get selected to the Faculty of Medicine or Engineering or Law or whatever in this country. Then, so you have to be fully aware of your goal. So if you really want to get into the top 10% or 5% or 1%, then you need to get really good marks in the exam. In that case, you need to study the exam, not only the syllabi, the curriculum, right? Because in case the exams are properly aligned, all you have to do is to study what is being taught, and then that would be assessed, and then you pass if you have studied well. But when the exams are not properly aligned, in addition to studying the syllabus, you need to study, you need to research, you need to check what sort of a thing this exam is. So obviously you need to look at the past papers and the trends and you know, the marking schemes if available. For an example, A-levels, the marking schemes are available. So you look at them and you do a bit of a study of the exam. What sorts of things are asked, what areas are asked, you know, checked. So you prepare for that particular exam. So there may be memorizing to be done, and if there are lots of things to be memorized, for an example, bioscience A-levels, lots of huge amounts of knowledge are tested at the exam. So what you can do is that you first recognize what areas are tested, right? Some areas may be very interesting, very complex and all that, but they may never be tested. So it may not be very useful to study them again and again to pass the exam. So you need to study the exam, and you need to study the areas that you have selected as important. And if the amount of information is too heavy, too big, then you need to create a system to organize the information. For an example, if it is about the animals, you need to, different people try different techniques. For somebody, it may be a graphic representation of the animal world in his or her mind, where he or she may have actually drawn it on a big piece of paper. You know, the complex animals on one side, simple animals on the other side, the comparison of them in the bottom, you know. So you have your own mental picture of how to organize this knowledge. So then when at the exam you are supposed to recall certain piece of information, it's not just vomiting what you have memorized. You are going back to that mind image, the mind map, and you find your way through, and you go to that particular point and you have the information you wanted. So you have to have such strategies, and then even the exam is not properly aligned, you can pass it.
I see.
With least harm to yourself.
So the trick is to properly align them.
Well, that is the responsibility of us as members of the society, academics, political leaders, administrative leaders, and the general society. And parents. But until that is done, until they are properly aligned, perhaps this is the way out.
Yeah. Oh, well, Doctor, thank you very much. It's been a very interesting discussion about education for your kids here in Sri Lanka. Well, thank you, Doctor. I know we'll be seeing more of you. I'm sure we'll keep calling you and hassling you. Doctor, please come back to that show. We have lots of more topics to talk to you about. So thank you very much for being with us this morning. Well, that's the end of this morning's show. Thank you very much. Thanks to our guest, Dr. Mahesh Rajasuriya. Thank you for watching. We are done this morning, and we hope that you have a fantastic day ahead. Bye-bye.